Hey, I'm your cult boyfriend. We're going to be talking about the 2014 film Veronica Mars today. Veronica Mars may be the best cult show ever, and it has the receipts to prove it, right? What makes Veronica Mars the film so good and so cool and so much fun, and I think so important to media, is that it's entirely fan funded. Rob Thomas, and this is a pretty famous story. Rob Thomas put up a Kickstarter asking for $2 million, and that goal was reached almost instantly. Overall, over Kickstarter from the fans, the film received over $5.5 million, and well, the fans resurrected Veronica Mars. I think if we can take a quick look at the dedication, right, for the book, the $1,000 tan line that came out after the film. Rob Thomas wrote, "For all the Veronica Mars Kickstarter backers, you're like the people who clapped loud enough to bring Tinkerbell back from the dead, except instead of clapping, you sent money, and instead of a tiny blonde fairy, you resurrected a tiny blonde detective." I think that's incredibly cool and incredibly important. Um, I think the film is great. You know, I think it's great. I think that a part of what's really cool about the film is that it's paid for by the fans and made for the fans. And a lot of the criticism that seems to come from it is that it's like fan service, which doesn't fucking make sense to me because the fans literally funded the film. They should get their money's worth. They should get what they paid for. Fan service, I think when the fans give you millions of dollars, like directly, you're allowed to shamelessly provide service for those fans. They're paying for a service. It's made by the fans, you fucking weird critics, man. I swear to God. But even then, we remove the fan service from it, which the fan service is a large part of it. There's still something entirely fascinating about the film. And by something, I mean many things. There are many things that are entirely fascinating about the film. Welcome to my video. I'm your cult boyfriend. Let's fucking get into it, bro. Firstly, I think it's really well composed. The composition is kind of magnificent. There's a certain excellent visual artistry that wasn't necessarily available in the show, but is on full display here. The cinematography is outstanding. I love the way that the film looks. There's a certain neo-noir quality that blends perfectly together with this sort of nostalgic yearning that's kind of trapped inside ultra-modernity. I think is really cool. The film opens with a recap. Veronica getting you up to date on all of her previous adventures from the show's first 3 seasons. And she says, when the class war comes, Neptune will be ground zero. It's been 9 years, and everything in Neptune is a hell of a lot worse. Um, Tensions between classes, between them, like the intensely stratified elite and impoverished, are so magnified, are higher than ever. What Veronica Mars the film is, it's an examination of addictive personalities. And I'm going to spend a decent amount of time on Veronica because it is a character study of Veronica and of her addictive personalities, of a way that she's trying to rationalize her mother's alcoholism with her own uh, addictive personality, being an adrenaline junkie, being perpetually attracted to Neptune and to all of the darkness and all of the skeezy parts that she just can't get enough of. Love is blind. But first, I kind of want to talk about Gia Goodman. And Martin Starr as Cobb, our villain, In Gia's words, he's a total trailer park weirdo. He kept Gia in a teenage stasis, lost futures, lost fortunes, held hostage by nostalgic longing and blue cool jealousy. So on my season 2 analysis video, I said I'm going to hyper focus on Gia when we get to the film. Well, hi everybody, we're at the film. It's time to talk about Krysten Ritter a lot. Though the whole point of Veronica Mars is that Logan is suspected of killing pop star Bonnie DeVille, or Carrie Bishop as she was known in high school, and to Veronica Mars fans, it looks like Logan killed her. She was a troubled girl, a drug addicted girl, because everyone has an addictive personality in this film. It's kind of the mantra. It's the primary theme of the film. But she's murdered, and to make a long story incredibly short, she was racked with guilt over the death of Susan Knight from high school. It was a party on a boat that like Gia and Luke and it was like Gia is his beard. Uh, Dick was there, and Bonnie DeVille was there, and so was Stuart Cobbler, played by Martin Starr, who we haven't seen before, but Martin Starr is a welcome addition here. Party Down, another Rob Thomas project, but I think more importantly to the thematics of this film, Freaks and Geeks. I like that when Veronica Mars has bugged Gia's apartment, she sets the frequency of the bug to transmit through a radio station that is apparently a popular radio station, and on it, Cobb and Gia sleep with each other, and when Cobb's going back to his apartment, he passes by the guidance counselor from Freaks and Geeks, who is like, "Oh, you did it, bro! You really wanted that poor girl to say your name," and that's a great interaction. Martin Starr is like a trailer park dweeb dirtbag who looked with longing at Gia Goodman, at this '09er clique, and always wanted to be a part of it, so he inserted himself within it. He was a drug dealer, and he started blackmailing them over the death of Susan Kane, which was an accidental death, but he's largely responsible for. And these kids were thinking of, lost fortunes, lost futures, and they would do anything to keep their reputation intact. Anything that Cobb said. Gia has to live in that specific apartment so that Cobb can keep an eye on her at all times and fuck her whenever he wants to. Gia Goodman has not had a very pleasant existence since her father was exposed for being a massive pedophile, and Cassidy Casablancas killed him, blew him up. The mad bomber of Neptune blew up her father. Gia Goodman is being held hostage. And it's a part of her teenage character that was held hostage. Gia Goodman was never the brightest bulb, right? She was never the sharpest tool in the shed. And she's being forced to remain in this bimbo stasis by Stuart Cobbler, by Cobb, our big bad of the film. She's not allowed to grow as a character. Rob Thomas is very good because he did this in season 3 as well. And you can argue he did this with Cassidy, or with all of his most tragic characters, or possibly with all of his characters, right? Um, Archetypes don't necessarily have the tools for emotional growth, for arcs, for true changes. But it's a lot more tragic when you can see what is holding them back from uh, attaining a sort of mature character growth. Like for Dick in season 3, it was that he was too idiotic to understand the concept of closure, let alone mental health. I mean, here they do have a throwaway line that he's on pot now medically for chronic depression, which he absolutely does have. That wasn't just a throwaway joke. He definitely has it. But Gia Goodman is the flip side of that himbo coin of Dick Casablancas. Um, it's just that misogyny in Neptune is far more common than it's just that misogyny in Neptune uh, is is a weaponized thing. Like a himbo with chronic depression, Dick Casablancas, no one's going to try to use him, right? No one's going to try to weaponize that. But a bimbo, but Gia Goodman, Gia Goodman's tragedy of idiocy, her tragedy of stupidity, is, I mean, misogynistic in nature. Cobb is keeping her, his whore, he's prostituting her out for a taste of like the elite upper crust culture, genes, biology. And Gia Goodman, you really can't do anything about it. Krysten Ritter was so amazing in this film. Gia becomes a fully fleshed out character here because it's a fully tortured one. She has no autonomy. She doesn't really have any opportunity in her life to truly feel free of guilt, free of shame, or to experience any sort of emotional growth because um, a sadistic prick named Cobb is forcing her to stay inside of this existential inertia, this stasis of teen wet dreams. That's that's what's happening to Gia. She's forced to stay a teen wet dream of Cobb's, and she's not allowed to grow. She's not allowed to experience emotional growth. And I think she secretly resents Veronica for seemingly being the only person who actually thinks that they can leave Neptune and grow more. I bet Gia wishes she could leave Neptune. I bet Gia wishes that she didn't have to stay directly across the street from Cobb's, that Cobb can look at her with his little telescope and just watch her undress, watch her in her most private moments, because another theme of Veronica Mars has always been privacy. And Gia Goodman never had privacy. And Veronica Mars had to attack that privacy to expose Cobb's entire control of Gia's life by bugging her. Gia Goodman is constantly on display. It's like her father, her father Woody Goodman, had her on display as this paragon of O-Niner virtue, as this like beautiful model of young, stupid, silly happiness. And then Cobb has kept her as like a doll, this thing that he could play with whenever he feels like. Malibu Barbie with an inner core of complete depression and empty sexiness. And if Veronica Mars is an examination of addictive personalities, if that's what the film is, uh, Cobb is addicted to his own psychopathy. Cobb is addicted to his dark psychology. Cobb is addicted to using these elite kids, these spoiled kids, as his own playthings to live out a deranged fantasy of high school cool that he could never get over even 9 years later. Actually, 10 years later, because they go to Veronica's reunion. And Veronica gets to punch Madison Sinclair in the face, and that's awesome. It's also cool seeing all the boys, fucking Logan and Weevil and Wallace and Piz, get into a huge fight over the fact that Madison played Veronica's college sex tape for everyone to laugh at and enjoy. School scene corny, making duct tape wallets on Etsy. See how that sounds realistic? That sounds fun. That makes sense. I hate when they do these reunion stuff and like everyone is like super successful. I like realism sometimes. Do I wish that Cobb was better developed? Not necessarily. I think that Cobb was developed, and I think that's like a meta narrative. Like the best postmodern flourish of the film is that Cobb is underdeveloped because of Cobb, Gia Goodman's life was severely underdeveloped. Like Gia Goodman as a woman did not get to develop like emotionally in a mature scope. She'll always just be this silly socialite. She was never allowed to develop herself into something more sophisticated because Cobb was keeping her in this stasis of nostalgia menacingly. So I think that Cobb being underdeveloped really speaks to the darkest themes of Cobb as a villain. I think that Cobb is a good villain. Martin Starr doesn't have a lot of screen time, but he makes the most of what he has, and I think that it's not necessarily what we feel about the villain, right? It's how we feel about seeing Gia Goodman being shot in the gut and dying, writhing on the floor. That's sad. That sucks. That's tragic. I loved Gia Goodman. I even loved her in season two. There just wasn't a whole lot to go into there, but she was consistently funny, like Dick Casablancas was, but the flip side of his himbo coin. I love Gia Goodman. And seeing her die here after she's like, this is the first honest scene I think we've ever experienced with Gia Goodman, and certainly that Veronica Mars has ever experienced with Gia Goodman. There's this untapped potential, this rage inside of her. Um, she's being held prisoner in the most luxurious penthouse in Neptune, California. Welcome to the BC, bitch. The tragedy of Gia Goodman was her inability to experience an arc. It was violently forbidden by Cobb, the nemesis of the film. Logan Eccles is really cool this season. I like this portrayal of Logan more than I like the season three interpretation of the character because this character, Logan in the film, still feels a bit violent, a bit a he has a lot of dark edges to him. He is he's dangerous and he's attractive, right? He's very attractive, and seeing Veronica and Logan together is perfect. I love seeing them together. I also love seeing Leo for a moment. Leo's cool. I'm not sure if I've mentioned him in these videos. I like Leo. We'll definitely talk about him in the season four analysis where she's kind of tempted by Leo. But for now, Leo is consistently charming and super likable and extremely handsome. So it's always great seeing Leo. It is cool catching up with these characters and seeing what they're like. Dick Casablanca's Ryan Hansen still knows how to make me laugh and roll my eyes simultaneously without even putting much into it. Like Ryan Hansen nailed Dick Casablancas. He fully understands his character, and I love Dick. He's great. I love Dick. Okay. Clip that too. I love Dick. It's cool seeing Wallace and Mac. Mac's a little annoying. I do have to say, she was kind of grating. Um, also, Mac and Wallace, it's cool seeing them. No, it's fine. I'm not going to criticize it. I love seeing Mac and Wallace. It's cool. It's cool seeing those amigos together again. Weevil being sucked back into crime. The sheriff's station is just like outwardly corrupt now. Jerry O'Connell plays a very good lamb. And yeah, it's cool. Oh, R.I.P. Sax. We have Mustache for Sax today. I like Sax. He's cool. That's like a really violent death. Really well captured on film. It's really well structured. That car crash. It's really good. It's really good. Uh, Veronica's father is super upset with Veronica most of the time, but he has to accept the things he can't change, right? Piz is excellent in this film. Veronica chooses Logan, but also chooses Neptune. It's Neptune that she's choosing. This is an examination of addictive personality, and all throughout it, there's this voiceover motif of Veronica talking about her life returning to Neptune as if she was attending an AA meeting. She brings up her mother a lot. Her mother was a terrible alcoholic, and she knows that she's addicted to Neptune. She's addicted to the adrenaline, to the frazzled, fractured archetypes of neo-noir mystery, and she's addicted to the tropes of Neptune, California. She's addicted to it. And in her absence, Neptune has gotten a hell of a lot worse, and she comes here and she tries to do what she can. She gets back into the mud and she rolls around. She's trying to figure out who she is. Like, who are you, Veronica? You can't escape your fate. Once an addict, always an addict. Veronica realizes who she is. She's a junkie. She's the most dangerous kind of junkie. She's addicted to payback. She's addicted to revenge. She's addicted to Neptune. She's addicted to the passion of Neptune. She's addicted to the hyperviolent romance of Neptune, to the unexpectedness of Neptune. She's addicted to gunshots. She's addicted to saving people. She's addicted to saving that part of herself that always feels like it's being held at gunpoint by the tyrants of wealth. She's addicted to Neptune, California. She's addicted to Logan Eccles. I think the most beautiful part of the film is where Veronica is supposed to catch a plane in the morning, and Logan offers to drive her to the airport, and she's like, "No, I already promised my dad he could do that." He says, "I'll take you home then," and she goes, "Let's take the long way." And then you hear the beginning of the Sufjan Stevens Chicago. Dun 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 da 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 da. I was in love with the place in my mind. In my mind, that Sufjan moment of clarity. It's so cool. And it's really romantic, and it's really like postmodern noir, and like I love it. It feels so cool, and that Sufjan song really just captures the vibe of the film so well. I love the way this film is shot. Incredible composition. I'm not done talking about Gia yet. I'm not done talking about her. This girl was murdered by some trailer park psychopath with a god complex. He was able to lord over this girl for 10 years. He was able to use her and use her up and then shoot her when he was done. What a despicable fucking dude. Fuck you, Cobb. But it's also speaking to a dark side of fandom. What I think a lot of critics don't understand about this fan service thing is that Cobb is like also representative in like a really nuanced and subtle way of those terrible parts of being in Hawk, of owing the less fortunate or just owing the fan, like I screwing you, becoming hyper obsessed with you. It's about fandoms because Cobb is also like he's being juxtaposed in my mind with Pew, with the red herring from earlier who was obsessed with Bonnie DeVille, who had like an obsessive murder wall of her, and would sing her songs at karaoke and dress up just like her and fantasize about being with Logan because Bonnie was with Logan. And it was an obsession she carried for a long time before she was even famous. When Carrie Bishop was still in high school, this chick was obsessed with her, just like Cobb was. It's about fans being weaponized, about stalkers being weaponized. It's about the weaponization of teen dreams. Now, someone like Bonnie, she was harmless, right? But not everyone is. Cobb is a deeply disturbed individual who found himself in a position of wielding a lot of power over the objects of his fantasy. I mean, that's what blackmail is. That's what sexual blackmail is. It's probably the worst form of objectification that someone who worships you can do, because only someone who worships the ground you walk on would try to commit sexual deicide every time he sees you. That's what Cobb does to Gia. So if it's a film made by fans for fans, we have to keep in mind that this film is showing two different versions of obsessive people, addictive personalities, sure, but it shows us Cobb and it shows us the woman who's obsessed with Bonnie DeVille, and neither of them are flattering at all, and one of them is as murderous, as cruel and psychopathic. It's a show about this is a film about addictive personalities. Fandoms, even of Veronica Mars, certainly express and display an extreme amount of obsession with these characters, with these archetypes. And they want these characters back, but part of them doesn't want them to change because a part of them doesn't want their own lives to change. They want Veronica Mars to come back so they can feel like they're still there in that teen fantasy, in that teen mystery, and everyone's back where they're supposed to be. All the places are in their proper fit, and no growth really, so to speak, because growth is scary, change is unordinary, and I think fans were paying for something that was more similar to their tastes. Now Rob Thomas is kind of a genius, so he's able to do that while also exposing like the fragility of the psychopathic tendencies of those with addictive personalities. Gia, I think, is a fascinating symbol of an archetype who isn't allowed to grow, who's being kept in a stasis by her biggest fan, Cobb, like being kept in that stasis. And yes, he must have been obsessed with her body. Yes, a rockin' body, I get it, but he was like psychosexually obsessed with her, and he wanted to torture her, he wanted to hurt her, he wanted to kill her, he wanted to fuck her, and he did all of those things. He ruled her. He wanted to be her god because he was her biggest fan. This is a film about addiction, about compulsion, about obsession, about adrenaline. And this film can be very suspenseful when it wants to be. But like the Gia death, I think it does hit me pretty hard because Rob Thomas is so perfect at writing sometimes. Because that scene where Gia lays out exactly what happened, like I said, I feel like it's the first conversation of the most authentic form of Gia we've ever seen, and the first time we really get to talk to Gia. And we realized that there was so much there that we didn't interact with because we weren't given the tools to do so. And she wasn't given the opportunity to reveal herself to us in a way that would bring out the pathos in an audience like that scene did. It reminds me of, like thinking back to Cassidy, and I love that character so much, and how I'm like, man, I spent a good amount of time with Cassidy, but I wish I had some more scenes where we could have seen that true face that he keeps underneath. When we could have seen the rooftop of the Neptune Grand version of Cassidy. He does this with Dick, and like Dick expresses his chronic depression a few times in season 3, but just barely enough for you to like beg for more interiority. Um, Post 9/11, post Columbine kids, they're really insecure and they're incredibly guarded, but they're also more sensitive than any other generation because of like the random violence that they think defines and dominates the era that they have come of age within. And Gia Goodman, man, the tragedy of Gia is death of potential, and it's so perfect and it's so beautifully done by Rob Thomas. And I loved Krysten Ritter in the film, and I think she was supposed this could just have been a rumor, but I think originally she was cast as Veronica Mars, or at least she auditioned for the role back in '03. So it's cool seeing her here um, coming back to, I think, really had the best part of the film, which is her death scene, which is her exposition scene, her reveal, which is also the reveal of the pathos of the true core of her character, which is like super damaged and just a prisoner of her own wealth, a prisoner of her own um, kind of self-destructive behavior when she was in high school. And Cobb, I think he's a vicious fucking dude who can represent the darkest parts of the addictive personality. I mean, this film is a product of addictive personality. You don't just give $5.5 million to something that you're half interested in. Fans became obsessed with this show. That's what fans do. I mean, I'm obsessed with the show. I have the two tattoo. I have Veronica's name tattooed on my body twice. Like, fans don't just like a show. Fans get obsessed with the show. That's how shows are kind of like designed. They're designed to be addictive and to foster addictive personalities. And I just think that Rob Thomas is the first person who really decided to study that kind of bizarre and occasionally psychopathic relationship that fans have with the media that they identify with the most. And like, there's a lot of fascinating things about the Veronica Mars film, but no one has really given it the time of day. No one has really provided like a true critical lens to it. So thank God I'm here. The fucking hero of the world is me. Yeah, I'm like some sort of saint. But there's a lot to dive into here. I don't think enough people uh, take this film as seriously as they should, because I haven't seen any of this that I'm talking about being expressed anywhere. And it's incredibly deliberate, and I think it's impossible to ignore. And what you all have to realize is that Veronica Mars will always be smarter than you, and that Veronica Mars does a great job of playing dumb. If you want to catch Veronica Mars, you got to wake up really early. But it's there, and you're implicated because we all have addictive components of our personalities. We're all there. And this film is just wonderfully made, and it's a wonderfully considered, thought out, plotted, and composed study of addictive personalities in all of their varying forms. And Kristen Bell did extraordinarily well in the film. Uh, she's always perfect as Veronica Mars, right? She never falters. She's like perfect. Always a flawless performance. And Veronica, like, this is the part where I think she's at her most heroic in this film, because like I've been in situations like this in my life where I'm like, why? I feel like I'm fighting who I truly am, even though that part of who I truly am um, makes me feel like a person. You know, like I don't know who I am. I know who I know who I'm not, but I don't know exactly who I am. And who I am is, I mean, a product of my addictions. It's difficult to embrace it, but sometimes that's what you have to do, because you're not just addicted to substances. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about or referring to. I'm addicted to a sort of intensity that has been absent in my life the last couple of years. I'm addicted to a kind of unpredictability, to a kind of, yeah, to a kind of like teenage mindset freedom. I'm addicted to something. We're all emotional junkies, every one of us. Every last one of you. We're all emotional junkies. I'd rather be a junkie than a vampire. Veronica Mars is really good. It's a fucking great film. I do like seeing everybody, even for brief moments. You know, Christopher, learn how to talk. Zach, like Principal Clemens. I love seeing everybody, dude. They're really cool. And Neptune feels different. Like the composition of this film is really fucking great. Neptune feels different. It feels a bit darker. It feels more intense and it feels a little bit more dangerous and dirtier, you know? Like there may have been like rose-colored glasses of youth even in the first season of Veronica Mars, and even then it was like darkness and conspiracy and murder and sex everywhere. But now there's like a sort of like maturity here. And like rather than the film feeling jaded, disenchanted, or disconnected, you feel completely embraced by this newfound sophisticated darkness of Neptune in 2014. There's something about those bright lights. There's something about the way those bright lights call to Veronica and call to the viewer. There's something about Neptune that keeps us all wanting more, and we keep coming back, and we're never disappointed. Neptune forever. Being reunited with some of those feelings you had when you first watched the show as a teenager, being reunited with those feelings through a more mature lens. It allows you to re-examine your teenage posturing, your teen philosophy, and realize that you were kind of always right, and you just forgot that. Don't let your teenage philosophy die, because if you abandon that, people will get hurt. Don't forget who you are and who you were, and don't forget that bad people do bad things. If you're addicted to goodness, well, bad people who do bad things will be badly punished. I love you, Veronica Mars. Awesome. Yeah. What are we doing next? Next, we're covering both books, The $1,000 Tan Line and Mr. Kiss and Tell, both written by Rob Thomas with Jennifer Graham. I think they're both really good books. We're covering these next, so get on your reading glasses. So I've read both of these like at least twice. I recommend like actually reading them, but if you want, uh, my favorite way of experiencing the $1,000 tan line is like the audiobook actually is read by Kristen Bell. Whoa, fucking awesome, dude. It's really cool. So hopefully next time I'm here talking about Veronica Mars, you'll join me once more and we can study the in between these two novels before we wrap up our study of Veronica with a season 4 video. But this has been my analysis of the film. Hope you enjoyed it. I love this film. I've watched it a countless amount of times. I think it's like a highly enjoyable film, a deeply complicated one, and an extremely underrated film and underappreciated uh, for a lot of different reasons and in a lot of different ways. I love this film to death. And I think that's actually all. Thank you so much for watching, and fuck, dude, reconnect. If you've been out of the loop for a while, reconnect. Reconnect with that part of your personality that was once addicted to feeling alive. It's worth a shot. That was almost another video going by when I don't mention that Ken Marino is hilarious as Vinny Van Lowe. That's all. That's all I have to say, I guess. I think he has one of the funniest lines in the film where he's like, I'm the reason the world knows Anne Hathaway has a vagina. Before me, it was like maybe, but now they know. Ken Marino rules. That's all. God, it was almost going to be another video where I forgot to mention that he's hilarious. Hopefully, I don't forget to mention him in the season 4 video. Thanks for watching. I'm your cult boyfriend. And if ever again, a greeting I send to you, short and sweet to the soul I intend.